this short lesson, we will synthetically address the theme of sustainability reporting. Why is it important to talk about this topic? Sustainability reporting is a form of sustainability communication. The impact of our message, in fact, depends on the communication channels we use. It is possible to communicate not only talking, but also singing, writing, drawing, using photos, videos, books, products, and so on. Actually, the real problem is too much communication. But is it really true? Just because there are many ways to communicate, the forms and the methods used have to depend on the goals pursued. So how to communicate? First of all, the forms and the methods of communication could differ if we refer to a company or a public institution. For the United Nations Environment Programme, in the case of company, 4 types of sustainability communication can be identified in relationship to strategic objectives. First, corporate communication, to provide a responsible image of the company, for example through the sustainability report. Second, green marketing, to purchase sustainable products or services, for example the eco-labelling. Third, social marketing, to encourage virtuous practices, for example fundraising campaign. And fourth, responsible marketing, to advertise their own codes of conduct. For public institutions, instead, the first challenge is certainly to educate citizens and make them aware of sustainability issues. For this reason, it is important to promote responsible communication in every form. In this context, sustainability reports are used both by companies and by institutions. Communicating sustainability information, in fact, encourages accountability, helps identifying and managing social, economic, and environmental risks, and allows organizations to seize new opportunities. Finally, we do not have to forget that sustainability reporting is important also for the SDGs of Agenda 2030, in premise SDG 4. How to write a sustainability report? The main reference for the preparation of sustainability reports is the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. GRI is an independent international organization that has pioneered sustainability reporting since 1997. Numerous stakeholders have collaborated to create this international initiative, which provides a common framework for voluntary reporting of company financial, social and environmental practices. This activity is important because it helps organizations, including public institutions, not only to communicate but also to understand their impact on critical sustainability issues. For example, climate change, air and water quality, human rights, governance and social well-being. A series of standards has been drawn up by the GRI and are available online, where it is also possible to find many suggestions on how to implement the reporting. There are also illustrative videos. In particular, there are universal and specific standards. Universal standards, the 100 series, cover the following topics: foundation, starting point to use the GRI standards; general disclosures, to report contextual information about organization; and management approach, to report the management approach for each material topic. Specific standards, the 200, 300 and 400 series, concern respectively economic, environmental and social topics. For example, the GRI 300 environmental standards includes documents concerning materials, energy, water and effluents, biodiversity, emissions, effluents and waste, environmental compliance and supplier environmental assessment. The GRI 200 economic standards includes 6 documents: economic performance, market presence, indirect economic impacts, procurement practices, anti-corruption and anti-competitive behavior. And the GRI 400 social standards includes 19 documents, from occupational health and safety and diversity and equal opportunity to non-discrimination and customer privacy and socio-economic compliance. In addition, on the GRI website, a sector guidance is available, which makes reporting more relevant and user-friendly for organizations in different sectors. For instance, many sectors have unique sector-specific sustainability impacts that are not covered by the GRI standards. For example, noise pollution around airports or animal welfare in the food processing industry. In response, GRI developed guidance to report on these sector-specific issues. In particular, it is important to remember the 10 G4 sector disclosures: airport operators, food processing, media, NGO, mining and metals, oil and gas, financial services, event organizers, electric utilities, construction and real estate. It is also important to underline that the use of indicators is fundamental for the GRI. The monitoring of environmental performance is in fact at the basis of the reporting process. For example, GRI 305 concerns some types of emission into air: greenhouse gas, ozone-depleting substances, nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, among other significant air emissions. In particular, concerning GHG emission, the reporting organization shall report several information. For example, GHG emission in metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, biogenic carbon dioxide emissions in metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Moreover, it is useful to highlight that on the GRI website you can find an analysis that shows the relationship occurring between GRI standards and the SDGs indicators. About 40% of the SDGs indicators are directly or indirectly linked to GRI disclosures that are very useful with respect to the SDGs indicators. Finally, you can find online many examples of sustainability reports prepared according to the GRI guidelines. There are traditional reports, downloadable PDF files, for example, Sustainable Development Report 2017 of Decathlon or Responsible Care 2018 of Federchimica, but also interactive reports, information content that can be reached by browsing the website or via illustrative videos, for example, the Sustainability Report 2017 of Hera Group and Sustainability Report 2017 of UCB. Of course, there are many other tools, norms and standards concerning sustainability management and communication. For example, the Global Compact, in particular practical guide concerning integrating the Sustainable Development Goals into corporate reporting, or OECD guidelines for multinational enterprise, the ISO 40,000 standards family and ISO 26,000 standard, EMAS and Ecolabel regulation, SA 80,000 standard, ICC Business Charter for Sustainable Development, etc. For details, you can consult the specific websites. Finally, it is important to remember, first of all, that thanks to the European Directive 2014/95, sustainability reporting is now mandatory for many organizations. The non-financial declaration should cover environmental, social, personal-related issues, respect for human rights, the fight against active and passive corruption, which are considered relevant taking into account the activities and characteristics of the company. Why this directive? Because it is necessary to improve undertakings disclosure of social and environmental information of organizations. Moreover, it is important to remember that there are several risks connected to communication on sustainability issues, in particular an abusive or incomplete communication. Concerning abusive communication, we talk mainly about greenwashing, a term used when an organization tries to construct a responsible image that doesn't exist. For example, not transparent and not legitimate communication practices in the form of ambiguous or dishonest advertising of demonstration of good practices that are often minor compared to the main activities of the company. Taking instead about incomplete communication, I will conclude this lesson with some pictures. As always, an image communicates more than 1,000 words.